I've met hundreds of muhajirin over my 2 decades living abroad, and I've seen firsthand how bad advice has set them back. So here are the 7 worst pieces of advice often given about moving to the Muslim world and why you need to ignore them if you want to succeed, inshallah. So stick around to the end to hear my top 3 worst pieces of advice. Number 7, Hijrah means completely cutting off your past life. It's not practical to cut off your family, your friends, the masjid that you attended. You should always keep good connections and keep your network intact. Don't think that you're coming to a place that all of a sudden is Jannah on earth. It's not like that. You will learn quickly that you need those skills that you learned in the street or those advices that you took from people in the world to understand how to navigate the Muslim world as well, because those characters exist in both places. You'll find the thief, you'll find the pickpocket, you'll find the scammer, you'll find this one and that one. So you need to take what you learned in the past to navigate through to the future. Number 6, you'll find a job easily because there's always demand for expats. This may have been true maybe 20 years ago when it was difficult to find people who can teach English or native speakers that can teach English. But nowadays, things are changing. New generations are coming up. And these new generations are actually being trained by the older guys that came for Hijrah to do the job that you are doing now. It is something called Saudiization or Qatarization, which means that the locals are beginning to take the jobs that the foreigners once held. So don't think that you can come just with minimal skills and be able to navigate the job market because everybody's looking for an expat. That's not the case. You have to up your game. If you want to come into the job market in the Muslim world, you have to be exceptional and you have to strive for ihsan, if you want to say. You have to be in a good standing with what you know and your knowledge base so that you can compete in the market, because you can have an edge by being an expat, but it's not a guarantee. Also remember, businesses are here to make money. So the reason they would hire an expat is because they plan to make money from hiring you. If they can't make money from hiring you, then they won't hire you. You have to see how you can add to their team to increase their bottom line. Number 5, you'll be safe everywhere as long as you're Muslim. Every country has its underbelly. Every country has safe and unsafe areas. But we would argue that the Muslim world is much safer than many places in the West. But don't take that for granted. That doesn't mean that you come to a country and you start to live in places where the locals themselves wouldn't live. If you're on a certain level, meaning that let's say that you come from a certain class, let's say, and many people don't like the way we use these terms and things like that, but this is just a reality. You have social classes. You have people that come from a high social class, people from a working class, people from a poverty-stricken area. All of that matters. When you come to the Muslim world, you have those classes. They exist. But just because you're Muslim in these areas doesn't necessarily mean that you're safe and there's no problems that could happen. It's always good to, for example, search makehijrah.com, look for different articles and different videos that we've made to try to understand how things work in these different places. Aside from Make Hijrah, go to YouTube, search the net, and see how life is like from other expats so that you understand what to expect. Number 4, any Muslim country will be great for Hijrah. Sometimes we have unrealistic expectations when we want to move abroad. So it's very important that we recommend that you go and do fact-finding missions. You go on vacation in those places. You rent Airbnbs in certain neighborhoods so you can see what the neighbors are like and what the neighborhood is like. You ask people, you get with the expat communities, you go to the places where the expats are, ask questions, talk, get as much information as you can, because it's not true that every Muslim country is suitable for Hijrah. It's not the case. Some countries have political turmoil going on. Some places are unsafe due to other reasons. It's so much that it goes from 1 to 10 that you have to research first before you go. And then once you go, you have to do more research to see if this place is suitable for you. And if you have a family, definitely if it's suitable for your family. Now we're getting down to the last 3 bad advices. Number 3, it's always cheaper than living in the West. While this may be true a majority of the time. It's not always true because it depends on your lifestyle, the type of lifestyle you lived in the West, or what your expectations are, the type of living conditions that you want, the type of house you want to live in. Sometimes we want to say, okay, our money can stretch so far, but in some countries, the rent is very expensive. The lifestyle is very expensive. If you want to live a lifestyle where you're getting things imported, buying imported goods from the grocery stores, buying imported clothes or brands from the West, you'll find that your life could be much more expensive. So you end up spending more money, especially if you have a family and your family has needs and each child needs this, and you don't want to buy the local clothes, you want to buy the brand name clothes, then you'll find you're spending much more money than you thought you would. So it's important to understand that while it is cheaper if you go local, if you buy the local goods, it may be more expensive if you're used to certain things, used to certain brands, and you want to take that mentality and go to the Muslim world with it. If you do that, then you may find out that you're spending much more money than you should be living in a Muslim country. Number 2, you don't need to know the language. People will understand. While this may be true in many countries have English as a second language, and some countries even have English as a first language. While that may be true, there are some differences. There are some nuances. When you speak a language, your culture has a big impact on how the language is understood. So you may say something to someone that does understand English, but if you say it in a certain way, they may not understand what you're saying. And in some cases, like Turkey, for example, you'll be hard pressed to find people that can speak English. And if you find someone that can speak English, then you probably will be using that person for most of your interactions in the country. Because even if you have to go to the hospital, emergency things, in some cases, there's a big language barrier where the people there, they don't understand any English at all. The same with places like Kazakhstan or places that are considered Russia, if you want to say, where Russian is the language. So don't think that because English is a popular language, that wherever you go, people will understand English. You have to make effort to try to understand the local language. You have to at least be able to hold a basic conversation in the local language. So it would be a good idea to invest in some courses, some basic language courses, and try to take the courses that are for the local language, the language spoken on the ground. Don't take a course with the grammar and everything like that. You want to get just the basic, I want to go here. How do I go here? What do I do? These type of basic things. Understand how to ask questions. Understand your numbers. When you're buying and you're selling anything, you want to know how much this costs. You want to say, okay, this is my change is how much. You need to have a basic understanding of the local language and don't rely solely on your English. And the number one worst piece of advice is just wing it. You'll figure it out when you get there. Anyone that tells you this, even if they mean well, we understand the concept of relying on Allah. But alongside that comes a degree of preparation. And after you prepare as much as you can, then you depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take that effort that you put and make it fruitful for you. You can't just go to a place and just hop off the plane. I have $5 in my pocket and I'm going to. Now, a long time ago, I wouldn't be an advocate of this planning thing and being meticulous in planning. I would have the same idea of just wing it. Go to the Muslim country, just go check it out. But because of my experience doing that, I made a lot of mistakes. And I didn't have anyone to lead me into the right directions. I had to figure it out for myself. And all that was required for me is to do the proper research. Take a little more time, be patient, have a plan. And then after you created your plan and after you knew as much as you could and you exhausted your efforts in doing that, then depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it successful. In conclusion, take your unique situation into account when you plan to relocate or make hijrah. Understand that your situation may be different than someone else's situation. Think deeply about your own circumstances. Talk to people that have done it before. It'll save you time. It will cut down the learning curve. You can avoid the mistakes that someone preceded you made. That's the importance of counsel. Somebody can direct you in the right direction. So we highly encourage you to go to consultation.makehijrah.com just to understand how this works. I don't take on every consultation call. We choose the people based on what your needs are. So you may get on the phone with somebody that's living. If your question is about Morocco, you'll get on the phone with somebody, inshallah, that's in Morocco that can tell you. If you want to go to Malaysia, we'll put you in contact with somebody in Malaysia to do the consultation. The number one bad piece of advice was about winging it. If you want to know just how important this is, watch this video where I tell you what happened to me when I made my first unplanned move abroad.